I beg you, hurry." The Apache woman's cry that made the rancher do something unthinkable. The afternoon began like many others on the ranch, slow, wide, and quiet. The land stretched endlessly in every direction, dry grass moving gently under a warm breeze. The rancher had been fixing a fence near the far pasture, his hands working out of habit while his mind stayed calm and steady. This land had been his life for years. Every post, every trail, every sound of wind through the open fields was familiar to him. Silence was not empty here, it was comforting. He wiped sweat from his brow and straightened up, scanning the horizon. The sun was slowly dropping, painting the sky in soft gold and pale orange. Evening chores still waited, but there was no rush. Life on the ranch followed its own rhythm, slow, patient, and honest. Then he heard it. At first it sounded like the wind, sharp and sudden. But then it came again, clearer this time. A voice. A woman's voice. "I beg you, hurry." The sound cut through the open land like a blade. The rancher froze. His heart skipped before his mind could catch up. People did not cry out like that unless something was very wrong. He turned toward the sound, listening carefully. The voice came again, closer now, filled with panic and fear. He dropped the tools in his hands and started walking fast, then running. His boots kicked up dust as he moved toward the dirt road near the edge of his property. She appeared from behind a cluster of mesquite trees, running as hard as she could. Her long dark hair was loose and tangled, her breath short and uneven. Her face showed pure terror. He recognized her immediately. She was an Apache woman from the nearby community. He had seen her before, quiet, respectful, never one to draw attention or trouble. Seeing her like this sent a cold feeling through him. She stumbled as she reached the road, nearly falling. The rancher rushed forward and caught her arm to steady her. "Slow down," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "What's wrong?" She grabbed his sleeve tightly, her hands shaking. Her eyes searched his face like she was afraid he might disappear. "Please," she said, struggling to breathe. "You have to help me. There's no time." He had heard fear before, in storms, in injured animals, in men facing loss. But this fear was different. It was deep, personal, and urgent. "Tell me what happened," he said. She tried to speak, but the words tangled in her throat. She shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. "They won't listen," she said finally. "No one will listen." I ran as fast as I could. The rancher felt his chest tighten. He glanced down the empty road, then back at her. "Who won't listen?" he asked. She swallowed hard. "Everyone," I begged them all. The rancher had lived long enough to know when someone was not exaggerating. Her voice was raw. Her body trembled not from exhaustion alone, but from fear that something terrible was already happening. "Come sit," he said gently, guiding her toward his truck parked nearby. She shook her head fiercely. "No, please, we must go, now." Her grip on his sleeve tightened, almost painful. "What's going on?" he asked again, firmer this time. She looked straight into his eyes. "Someone is hurt, badly. If we don't move now, it will be too late." Those words landed heavy. Too late. The rancher had heard them before, usually when there was nothing left to fix. He hesitated only for a second. Helping her meant stepping into something unknown. He was not part of her community. He knew how quickly people judged, how easily intentions were misunderstood. He had learned to mind his own business because that was how peace was kept out here. But this was not a small matter. This was not gossip or trouble. This was life. "Get in," he said, opening the truck door. Her face showed a mix of relief and disbelief. She climbed in quickly, still shaking. He started the engine and pulled onto the road, dust rising behind them. "Where are we going?" he asked. She pointed ahead, her voice low, past the old wash, toward the hills. He nodded and pressed the accelerator. The truck bounced over the rough dirt road as the sun dipped lower. Shadows stretched long across the land. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The sound of the engine filled the space between them. The rancher kept his eyes on the road, but his thoughts raced. He knew this area well, but he also knew the stories. the unspoken lines between communities, the old pain that never fully faded. He had always tried to treat everyone with respect, but respect alone did not protect a man from consequences. Still, he did not slow down. The woman finally spoke again, her voice quieter now, worn down by fear. "I didn't know who else to run to," she said. "You were the closest." He glanced at her briefly. Her face was streaked with dust and tears, her eyes fixed on the road ahead. "You did the right thing," he said. She shook her head slightly. "I don't know if there is a right thing anymore." Those words stayed with him. As they drove, the land around them grew rougher. The road narrowed, rocks scattered across the path. The rancher slowed just enough to keep control, but not enough to waste time. "Who's hurt?" he asked carefully. She hesitated, then spoke. "My brother." The rancher felt his jaw tighten. "What happened?" "There was an accident," she said. "He fell. He can't move. He's losing strength." The rancher had dealt with accidents before: falls, broken bones, animals pinned or crushed. He knew how quickly things could turn bad. "Why didn't you call for help?" he asked. Her answer came sharp and bitter. "I tried." That was all she said, but it was enough. The truck climbed a small hill, and the road curved toward the hills she had pointed out earlier. The sky darkened into deeper shades of orange and purple. The rancher's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He could feel it now. This was not just about helping someone. This was about stepping across invisible lines that many people were afraid to cross. He remembered the first time he had met her months ago at a supply store in town. She had stood quietly near the back, waiting her turn, ignored by most. When it was her turn, the clerk had been short with her. The rancher had noticed, but like most people, he had said nothing. It wasn't his place, he had told himself. Now that silence felt heavy. "Almost there," she said suddenly. He saw a small trail leading off the main road and turned onto it. The truck jolted as it moved over uneven ground. Bushes scraped the sides and dust filled the air. The woman pressed her hands together tightly, whispering words he could not understand. The rancher did not ask. He focused on driving. As the truck slowed near a clearing, his heart began to pound harder. Whatever waited ahead would demand more than just a ride. He brought the truck to a stop and turned off the engine. The sudden silence was heavy. She jumped out before he could speak. "Hurry," she said, already moving forward. He followed her without hesitation. With each step, he felt the weight of what he was doing settle deeper. He didn't know yet what action would be required of him. He only knew one thing for certain. From the moment he heard her cry across the land, there was no turning back. The rancher followed her into the clearing, his boots crunching softly over dry ground. The air felt different here, thicker, tense, as if the land itself was holding its breath. A few scattered trees stood around the open space, their shadows stretching long as the sun dipped lower. Near the center, he saw a figure lying on the ground. The woman rushed ahead and dropped to her knees beside him. "Brother," she whispered, her voice breaking. The rancher moved closer, his heart pounding. The man on the ground was young, maybe in his early 30s. His face was pale, his breathing shallow. One leg was bent at an unnatural angle, and dark stains marked the dirt beneath him. The rancher had seen enough injuries in his life to know this was serious. He knelt down carefully, keeping his movements slow. "What happened?" he asked. The woman wiped her tears with trembling hands. He was fixing the old structure near the ridge. The ground gave way. He fell hard. The rancher nodded. He gently placed 2 fingers on the man's neck, feeling for a pulse. It was weak, but there. "How long has he been like this?" he asked. She looked away, shame and fear mixing on her face. "Too long." The rancher swallowed. Time was not on their side. "Did anyone else come?" he asked. She shook her head. "I ran for help. I went to the road. I went to town. I asked, but they said to wait. They said there were rules." Her voice hardened with pain. "Rules don't stop someone from dying." The rancher did not argue. He understood rules. He also understood moments when rules became excuses. He looked around the clearing, no signal. No nearby help, just them, the injured man, and the fading daylight. We need to move him, the rancher said, her eyes widened. Is that safe? It's not ideal, he replied honestly, but leaving him here is worse. He stood up and walked back toward the truck, scanning the ground as he went. He grabbed a thick blanket from behind the seat and returned quickly. We'll make a stretcher, he said. The woman nodded immediately, ready to do anything he asked. Together they carefully rolled the injured man onto the blanket. The man groaned softly, his eyes fluttering open for a moment before closing again. It's okay, the woman whispered to him. Help is here. The rancher felt a sharp twist in his chest at her words. Help is here. He hoped that would be true. They lifted the blanket slowly, coordinating their movements. It was hard work. The man was heavier than he looked, and every step felt risky. Sweat ran down the rancher's back, but he did not stop. When they reached the truck, he opened the back door wide. We'll lay him across the seat, he said. It's the best we can do. As they settled him inside, the rancher noticed the woman's hands shaking violently now. Fear was finally catching up with her. Sit down, he said gently. Breathe. She leaned against the truck for a moment, closing her eyes. When she opened them again, they were filled with determination. Where are we going? She asked. The rancher paused. The nearest clinic was far. Calling for official help would take time they did not have. And he knew deep down that even if he called, delays would come. Questions, procedures, waiting. He made a choice in silence. I know someone, he said finally. An old friend. He's not supposed to help like this, but he will. She searched his face. Will it be enough? I don't know, he admitted, but it's our best chance. That was the truth, and she accepted it. They climbed into the truck. The rancher started the engine and turned sharply onto a rougher road that led away from town. As the truck sped forward, the woman held her brother's hand, whispering words of comfort. The rancher kept his eyes forward, his jaw tight. He knew what he was doing now crossed a line. He was avoiding official channels. He was taking responsibility for a life without permission. If something went wrong, blame would fall squarely on him. Yet strangely, his hands did not shake. The road was narrow and uneven, forcing him to slow down at times. Each bump made the injured man groan softly. The woman flinched with every sound. I'm sorry, she whispered over and over. The rancher listened quietly. He had heard those words spoken in pain before, people apologizing for things that were never their fault. You don't need to be sorry, he said at last. You did what anyone would do. She looked at him, her eyes filled with something close to disbelief. No, she said softly. Not everyone would. That truth sat heavy in the cab. As they drove, the rancher's thoughts drifted to what would come after. He imagined questions, accusations, people saying he should have waited, should have followed procedure, should have minded his own business. He had heard those words his whole life. Minding your own business keeps you safe. Staying quiet keeps things simple. But safe and simple meant nothing if someone didn't survive the night. The truck finally reached a small, isolated building tucked between hills. A single light glowed from inside. The rancher parked quickly and jumped out. I'll be right back, he told the woman. He ran to the door and knocked hard. A moment passed, then another. Finally, the door opened. An older man stood there, surprise flashing across his face. You, he said, what are you doing here? No time, the rancher replied. I need help now. The older man hesitated, looking past him toward the truck. He saw the injured man inside. His face changed. You know what this means, the older man said quietly. I do, the rancher answered, but I'm asking anyway. Silence stretched between them. Then the older man stepped aside. Bring him in. The rancher let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Together they moved quickly, carefully carrying the injured man inside. The woman followed closely, fear and hope tangled in her expression. As the door closed behind them, the rancher knew this was the moment his life truly shifted. There would be no denying his role now. No pretending this was a small favor or harmless choice. He had acted when others hesitated. Whatever came next, he would face it. Because when a woman cried out in desperation, he had listened, and that choice had already changed everything. The small building felt quiet but tense, like a place that had seen many difficult moments. The light inside was dim but warm, casting long shadows on the walls. The older man moved quickly, his movements practiced, even though worry showed on his face. He guided them to a narrow room with a simple bed and a few shelves filled with supplies. It was not a hospital, but it was better than nothing. The injured man was gently placed on the bed. He let out a weak sound as he was laid down, his eyes opening just enough to show confusion and pain. His sister rushed to his side, holding his hand tightly. "I'm here," she whispered. "You're safe." The rancher stood back for a moment, watching. His heart felt heavy, but he pushed the feeling aside. There was still work to do. The older man began checking the injury carefully. He pressed lightly around the leg, examined the cuts, and listened to the man's breathing. His face stayed serious. "He lost a lot of strength," the older man said quietly, "and time." The sister looked at him with fear. "Can you help him?" The older man did not answer right away. He glanced at the rancher, then back at the injured man. "I will try," he said finally, "but you need to understand something." The rancher nodded. "Say it." "This place is not meant for this," the older man said. "If anyone finds out, there will be questions, maybe consequences." "I know," the rancher replied. "That's on me." The older man studied him for a moment, then nodded once. "All right, help me." The rancher stepped forward immediately. He rolled up his sleeves, ready to do whatever was asked. He had helped animals through injuries before, held steady through blood and pain, but this felt different. This was a human life, and every second mattered. The older man gave simple instructions. "Hold this. Press there. Lift carefully." The rancher followed without hesitation. The sister stayed near her brother's head, speaking softly to him, keeping him awake. As time passed, the room filled with quiet urgency. There were no loud machines, no alarms, only focused breathing and careful movement. Sweat formed on the rancher's forehead, but he did not step back. At one point, the injured man cried out, his voice weak but sharp. His sister flinched, tears spilling over. "I'm sorry," she whispered again and again. The rancher looked at her. "He needs to hear you," he said gently. "Keep talking." She nodded and continued, telling her brother stories from their childhood, reminding him of the land, their family, their shared memories. Her voice trembled, but it did not stop. The rancher felt something tighten inside his chest. He realized this was more than a rescue. This was trust, handed to him by people who had every reason to be careful. After what felt like hours, the older man finally stepped back. He wiped his hands and let out a slow breath. "For now, he's stable," he said, "but the night will matter." The sister sagged with relief, gripping the edge of the bed to stay upright. The rancher leaned against the wall, exhaustion hitting him all at once. "What happens now?" the rancher asked. "He needs rest," the older man said, "and quiet. I'll stay nearby." The rancher nodded. He knew staying might draw attention. Leaving might feel like abandoning them. He weighed the choice carefully. "I'll go," he said finally, "but I'll be close." The sister looked up at him quickly. "You're leaving?" "Just for a while," he said. "I'll come back." She studied his face, searching for doubt. Finding none, she nodded slowly. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was soft but full of meaning. The rancher stepped outside into the cool night air. The sky was dark now, stars scattered across it. The land looked peaceful, almost unaware of what had just happened. He leaned against his truck, breathing deeply. His hands trembled slightly now that the rush was over. The weight of his choices began to settle. He knew people would talk. Someone always did. A rancher helping an Apache family outside official systems would not go unnoticed forever. There would be rumors, questions, maybe worse. But when he thought of the woman's cry, the fear in her eyes, and the stillness of her brother's body on the ground, doubt faded. He stayed in his truck that night, not driving far, just enough to stay unseen. Sleep came in short, restless pieces. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw the clearing, the fall, the blood. Before dawn, he returned quietly. Inside, the room was still. The older man sat nearby, alert but calm. The sister looked up as soon as the rancher entered. "He made it through the night," she whispered. The rancher let out a breath he felt like he'd been holding for hours. "That's good," he said. The injured man stirred slightly, his breathing steadier now. It was a small improvement, but it felt like a victory. As the morning light crept in, reality returned. With daylight came visibility, and with visibility came risk. The older man spoke quietly. "People will notice if he stays here too long." "I know," the rancher replied. "We'll figure it out." The sister stood up slowly. "Whatever happens," she said, "I will tell the truth." The rancher looked at her. "So will I." They shared a long look of understanding. No promises were spoken, but a bond had already formed. Outside, the land woke up. Birds called. Wind moved through the grass. Life continued, unaware of the choices made in the dark. The rancher knew the hardest part was still ahead. Helping was one thing. Standing by that help when the world questioned it was another. But he also knew this. He had crossed a line not out of anger or pride, but out of humanity. And no matter what came next, he would not step back across it. Morning light spread slowly across the land, soft but revealing. With daylight came new sounds, birds calling, distant engines, the quiet signs of people starting their day. Inside the small building, the air felt heavier than before. Night had hidden them. Day would expose everything. The injured man opened his eyes briefly as the sun rose. His sister leaned forward at once. "You're okay," she whispered. "You're still here." His lips moved, but no words came out. Still, the fact that he was awake felt like hope. The older man checked him again, carefully, quietly. "He's holding on," he said, "but we can't stay like this." The rancher knew what he meant. This place was not meant to be noticed. Someone would ask questions. Someone always did. Outside, the rancher stepped into the fresh air. He looked toward the road, then toward the hills. His ranch waited for him, but going back to normal life was no longer possible. What he had done was already moving beyond him. A truck passed on the distant road, slowing slightly before moving on. The rancher felt a tightening in his chest. Was it just coincidence, or had someone already heard something? When he went back inside, the sister was standing, arms crossed tightly as if holding herself together. "They will come," she said quietly. "They always do." The rancher nodded. "That's why we need a plan." The older man joined them. "Moving him now is dangerous," he said. "But staying is risky too." Silence filled the room as they weighed the choices. Every option carried danger. Finally, the rancher spoke. "There's a safer place, on my land, an old guest house near the back pasture. No one uses it." The sister looked shocked. "You would take him there?" "Yes," the rancher said. "If he stays here, eyes will find him. On my land, I can control who comes and goes." The older man studied the rancher carefully. "You understand what you're offering?" "I do," the rancher replied. "And I'm offering it anyway." The sister's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were different. Not just fear, gratitude, disbelief, and something like trust. "Thank you," she said softly. They moved carefully, preparing to leave. The injured man was wrapped securely, his breathing watched closely. Every movement felt slow and tense, as if the world itself might shout if they rushed. When they stepped outside, the sun was higher now. Anyone passing could see them. The rancher did not rush. He moved with calm purpose, helping lift the man into the truck once more. The sister climbed in beside her brother, holding his hand the entire time. As the truck pulled onto the road, the rancher felt eyes on him, even if none were there. His jaw tightened. He drove steadily, choosing back paths, avoiding town. Halfway there, a vehicle appeared behind them, closing the distance. The rancher's heart began to pound. He checked the mirror again, and again. The vehicle stayed close. The sister noticed too. "Someone's following us," she whispered. "I see," the rancher said calmly, though his pulse raced. The road narrowed, trees closed in. The rancher slowed slightly, then turned onto a rough path that led toward his land. Dust rose thick behind them. The vehicle hesitated at the turn, then kept going straight. The rancher let out a slow breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. They reached the old guest house, a small, weathered building tucked away, nearly hidden by trees. It hadn't been used in years, but it was clean enough and quiet. Inside, the rancher moved quickly, laying the injured man down, setting water nearby, opening windows for fresh air. The sister stayed close, never leaving her brother's side. "This is safe," the rancher said. "For now," the sister nodded. "For now is enough." Hours passed slowly. The injured man drifted in and out of sleep. The older man came later, quietly checking him again. "He's stronger than he looks," he said. As afternoon approached, a knock sounded at the rancher's main house. The rancher felt it deep in his chest before he even opened the door. Two men stood outside. Their expressions were polite, but their eyes were sharp. "We heard there was an incident," one of them said. "A man injured." The rancher met their gaze evenly. "Accidents happen," he replied. "We were told you might know something." The rancher nodded once. "I helped someone who needed help." There it was, no denial, no excuses. They exchanged a look. "You should have reported it." "I acted," the rancher said simply. "There's a difference." The silence stretched. Wind moved through the grass between them. "This could bring trouble," one man said. "It already has," the rancher replied. "But I'd do it again." After a long moment, they stepped back. "We'll be in touch," they said. When they left, the rancher closed the door slowly. His hands shook now. The risk was no longer hidden. That evening, he returned to the guest house. The sister looked up when he entered. "They came, didn't they?" she asked. "Yes," he said. She lowered her head. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," he said firmly. "This isn't on you." The injured man opened his eyes again, clearer this time. He looked at the rancher, confusion fading into understanding. "You helped me," he whispered. The rancher nodded. "I did." "Thank you," the man said, his voice weak but sincere. The rancher felt something tighten in his throat. He turned slightly, pretending to check the window. Night fell again, quieter but heavier than the one before. This time, the danger was not just about survival. It was about standing by what had been done. The rancher knew the story would spread. People would talk. Some would judge. Some would twist the truth. But as he sat outside under the stars, listening to the land he loved, one thing was clear. He had chosen humanity over comfort. And no matter what followed, that choice had already shaped who he was. The days that followed moved slowly, but every hour felt heavy with meaning. The ranch no longer felt like just land and fences. It felt watched, as if every sound carried farther than before. Trucks passed on the distant road more often. Phones rang and went unanswered. The rancher noticed everything now. At the guest house, life settled into a quiet rhythm. The injured man rested most of the time. His breathing grew stronger each day, and the color slowly returned to his face. His sister stayed close, rarely leaving his side. She cooked simple meals, cleaned carefully, and watched every movement he made. Sleep came to her in short pieces, but she never complained. The rancher visited every morning and evening. He brought food, water, clean cloth, and quiet reassurance. He did not talk much. He did not need to. His presence alone seemed to calm the space. One evening, as the sun dipped low, the injured man spoke more clearly for the first time. "I remember falling," he said softly. "I remember thinking no one would come." The sister froze, listening. The rancher stood near the door. "Someone came," he said simply. The man looked at him. "You didn't have to." The rancher met his eyes. "Yes, I did." The words were plain, but they carried weight. As the man grew stronger, so did the attention around the ranch. Neighbors stopped by under small excuses, a broken fence, a missing tool. Friendly questions that were not really friendly. "You hear anything about that accident?" one asked casually. The rancher answered carefully. I heard someone needed help. That was all he said. No details, no names. Some nodded and moved on, others frowned. Not everyone approved. One afternoon a letter arrived, official, formal. The rancher read it once, then again. It spoke of procedures, expectations, and consequences. It did not mention compassion. It did not mention urgency. He folded the letter and set it aside. That night he sat outside the guest house watching the stars. The sister joined him quietly. They won't let this go, she said. No, he replied. They won't. She hesitated. You could tell us to leave. The rancher shook his head. Not until he's fully safe. She looked down, her voice low. This will cost you. He considered that, his land, his name, his quiet life. It already has, he said, and I'm still here. She nodded slowly. Where I come from, she said, help is remembered longer than trouble. The rancher smiled faintly. I hope that's true. Days turned into a week, then another. The injured man began to sit up, then stand with help. Each small step felt like a victory. Laughter returned, quiet but real. One morning the rancher found the brother standing outside the guest house, leaning on a post, staring at the land. It's beautiful, the man said. The rancher nodded. It keeps you honest. The man took a breath. I don't know how to repay you. The rancher looked at him. Live well, that's enough. Words spread beyond whispers now. Some people spoke kindly, others were harsh. A few thanked him quietly, away from listening ears. One evening the same men who had come before returned. This time their tone was different, less sharp, more measured. You made things complicated, one said. The rancher did not argue. I made a choice. They exchanged glances. Sometimes, the other said slowly, choices change things. Good, the rancher replied. They left without another word. Soon after, arrangements were made quietly. Proper care, safe transport, no public noise, no public blame. The system moved slowly, but it moved. The day came when the brother was ready to leave the ranch. The sister packed their few things carefully. She walked the land one last time, touching the fence, the trees, the earth beneath her feet. At the truck, she stopped in front of the rancher. I ran to you because I had no one else, she said. I didn't know if you would help. He nodded. Neither did I. She reached out and held his hands. You heard my cry, he swallowed. Anyone would have. She shook her head gently. No, not anyone. The brother stepped forward, standing on his own now. You crossed a line for us, he said. That matters. The rancher watched as they drove away, dust rising slowly behind them. The land felt quiet again, but not the same. In the weeks that followed, life returned to routine. Fences were fixed. Animals fed. Days passed under the open sky, but the rancher had changed. He noticed people more. He listened harder. Silence no longer felt harmless. Sometimes he stood at the edge of his land at sunset and thought about that cry carried across the fields. I beg you, hurry. He knew now that some moments did not ask permission. They asked for courage, and when they did, the answer stayed with you forever.